Hey guys, remember Doctor Who, Series 10, Episode 2, Smile, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. You guys know I always love Doctor Who, and I know last week I was a little bit harsh on the premiere, and I did not dislike last week's premiere. I thought last week's premiere was actually a really good start. I just felt the story wasn't as compelling as it could have been, but this episode, on the other hand, I thought was actually a lot better. We actually had a really different kind of enemy this week, that was going on. But what I really loved about this episode is that it actually, for the most part, focused a lot less on the overall threat of the episode, as Moffat tends to do, and focused more on the relation between Bill and the Doctor, which I thought was actually very smart, because sure, we saw it last week, but that was a lot more of setting things up, that relationship of how he didn't really want it, and now that Bill is his, official companion, now we can really get into that overall relationship, and I really did love seeing that, and right off the bat, we get this great scene where the Doctor, after realizing that he is going to make Bill his new, his new companion, he takes her on her first proper trip to the TARDIS, and she points out that the seats are too far from the central console and wonders what the cost is, and the Doctor casually admits that he stole it, which I thought was actually really funny, but just as there's a knock on the door, it turns out to be Nardole, who reminds the Doctor of his oath not to go off-world unless it's an emergency, and the Doctor refused to discuss it. It seems that he is completely fine with that, and when Nardole asks why Bill is there, the Doctor tells him to be careful. So Nardole's not really a big part of this episode. He's there for like one scene, but I like that they are finding ways to bring him in, because I mean, he is a main character this season, so I like the way they are trying to at least have him in every episode. But once Nardole leaves, he tells Bill to choose whether to go to the past or the future, and she chooses the future, and they depart, and we then end up at a colony in the future, and we see this character, Good Thing, is outside in the field and says to her sister, Kasaya, that she's coming in, and she tells the robot to wrap things up while a series of microscopic robot drones gather overhead. Meanwhile, Kasaya tells Good Thing not to come in because they're having a bot problem and tells her to keep smiling, and when Good Thing comes in, Kasaya puts on a fake smile and tells Good Thing that their mother is dead, and the emoji badge on Good Thing's back turns into a frown, and Kasaya is kind of like, saying that there are dozens of dead people. Now, Good Thing has no idea why Kasaya is saying this in, like, a pleasant tone. Like, why are you being so nice about this? And Good Thing insists that Kasaya can't say things like that. Kasaya begs Good Thing to smile. A robot comes over, hugs Good Thing. Microbots fly down from the ceiling. Kasaya then begs them to give Good Thing a moment. But the Microbots envelope Good Thing, and they strip her to the bones in a second. And as Kasaya breaks into tears, the bots then advance on her. And that was a perfect way to start things off. We immediately know what this threat's all about. We immediately know, what's going on. And I liked that. I liked that it was relatively simple. Last week, things were kind of complex, the way that, the whole story was going. And this is a relatively simple story. And that's one of the things that Doctor Who always succeeds at, is simple storytelling. And it helps because, like I said, we focus a lot more on the characters here. So, the TARDIS materialized in the field outside of the colony, and the Doctor and Bill walk to the colony. He explains it's one of Earth's first colonies, and Bill asks him about the oath that Nardole mentioned, and the Doctor tells him that something happened, and as a result, he made a promise to stay on Earth guarding a vault. Now, again, we don't know what that's all about. I'm sure that's still something that we're going to figure out, but we don't exactly know what that oath, why he made this oath to Nardole. But again, we definitely get the sense that the Doctor promised Nardole that he wouldn't really do this anymore, and now he's kind of doing it. And he refuses to think about what happens if he doesn't get back, and he spots the microbots flying overhead, and as they walk along, Bill's ear then glows red briefly, and the Doctor realizes that they've been fitted with communication devices, using their nervous systems as hardwares, and they very quickly become entrenched in the world that the rest of the colonists are kind of living in. So there's no sign of anyone, which was really weird, but one of the man-sized bots comes out. A smiley emoji is on his face, and the bot offers them blank badges, and the Doctor's has a frowny face on it, and the Bill's has a smiley face. And again, a lot of this seemed like it was going to be really silly, but it honestly worked a lot better than I thought it was going to. Like, emoji robots? What kind of shit is that? But they can only see the proper side of each other's badges because the face is never on the side that the owner is looking at, which I thought was was honestly really interesting that they can only see one side. They can't see the other side. So the doctor figures that they're not, that they are mood indicators and they can see what their own moods are. So they put the badges on and they climb onto their backs and they realize that everyone can see exactly what their moods are. And a bot then serves them food. The doctor wonders where the humans are and the doctor looks around frowning. The emoji face on the bot briefly turns into a frown. He realizes that the whole place is waiting and they're too early. So there are 2 servings for the doctor and he figures that the bots have detected his 2 hearts and consider him 2 people. And while Billy takes that in, the doctor figures that Earth sent the bots ahead to prepare the colony for the colonists. I'm assuming he has 2 hearts because, again, we've said before, the doctor is an alien. He's not an actual being. He is, he is a mythical being and therefore he does have 2 hearts. So the doctor and Billy continue looking around. Billy wonders if they're going to leave before the colonists arrive. And as he looks around, the doctor finds a locket. He picks it up, making sure that Bill doesn't see it. They find a greenhouse and Bill thanks the doctor for bringing her. And he asks her if he sounded convincing when he theorized that the colonists haven't arrived. And Bill points out the badges on his back with a frowny face and says that he didn't, he didn't think that they were there yet, and the doctor insists that there should be a setup team in there, and realizes that the sprinklers are spraying calcium-based fertilizer on the plants, and he opens the bin, revealing there are skeletons inside being grounded up, which that was really crazy to see, really gruesome stuff there, but a bot comes in showing a sad face, and the doctor and Bill try to get past it. It reveals this skeletal emoji, and the doctor and Bill then run. More bots surround them, and the doctor then tells Bill to smile. She does, and her badge turns into a smiley face, and the doctor explains the robots, which are the Vardy, have actually malfunctioned, and they were supposed to make the colonists happy, but again, because they're robots, they don't always do what their masters are telling them to do, so he suggested they give the Vardy what they want, smiles, and the emoji face on the bot turns into smiley. So for a lot of this episode, they have to kind of talk while they're smiling, while they're not really that happy, and I thought it was very interesting, honestly, the way that they have to just keep smiling and smiling, but as they run for the TARDIS, Bill's smile starts to slip, obviously because she's scared, and it would make sense why Bill cracked before the doctor did, because again, Bill's just not used to this kind of thing. She doesn't exactly know how to play along, she's a normal, and that's something I really like about Bill, is how normal she really is, and how she isn't composed, like some of the other companions would be, because this is really her first real type of encounter. She's obviously terrified. So the skeletal face bot grabs her. The doctor frees her with a sonic, but microbots fly after them. They get to the TARDIS, and the doctor tells Bill to stay there and explains he's going to go back and blow up the place, and he figures that there is a colonist ship on the way, and he has to deal with it, and Bill wonders why exactly he has to be the one to deal with it. And why out of everyone would the doctor have to do that? But she suggests that he call the police, but of course, this doesn't matter for the police. So the doctor runs back to the colony, and inside the TARDIS, Bill watches the doctor on the monitor, and then he goes outside, and again, I thought this was a really good setup here. I like how Bill didn't really know how this was all working out, and again, I thought all this setup was definitely very well done. So in the colony, the doctor takes out Good Things Locket. He looks at a hologram of her relative, and a bot appears, and the doctor insists that he's happy, and the Vardy, convinced, finally walks past. The doctor has an idea. He can hear someone breathing over the communication system, but they don't respond when he calls to them. Billy arrives and points to the sign on the TARDIS says advice and assistant available upon request, and the doctor says he's just passing by, but Bill doesn't believe him. She doesn't know how it's there, and he tells her to look at the wall, explains that the microbots make up the walls of the colony, and the doctor sets out to find a real wall and points that there must have been a real spaceship that the settlers arrived in, because obviously they're there. I mean, they didn't just disappear, obviously. They have to be there somewhere. It's somewhere inside the building, and this is essentially what the rest of the episode is. It's him actually finding them. So again, I like that these first, 15 or 20 minutes were just the doctor and Bill interacting, them realizing the ways of this world, and then them actually setting out on a real mission. It was a little bit different than the way some other episodes have been constructed, but it really did work here. Again, considering we hadn't really seen their chemistry before, I thought it worked really well. But the Vardy, convinced, finally walks past, and the doctor basically, he finds this real wall with rust and rivets, and Bill spots a door. They go in, the doctor closes the door behind them, and throughout the colony, all these bots start to activate. The doctor points out the spaceship life support is turning on, and it knows that they're there, so they find a map of the ship. The doctor actually tells Bill to stay there and guide him using the map. Bill feeds him directions directions through the communication system, and the doctor tells her they're going to blow up the ship, and she wonders why exactly he's allowed to blow up spaceships, and he insists it's a moral imperative. Again, I like the way that Bill is really questioning a lot of things the doctor's doing. Like, why is he able to do this kind of thing when in any other world this would be seen as inane and just volatile? Why does he have no consequences? Why is he able to do all this stuff? And again, Bill is relatively new to all this stuff, even though, as we know, Bill is advanced way beyond her years, and she's very highly intelligent and things like that. Again, a lot of this stuff she's just not used to. So Bill spots the engine in the middle of the ship. Just the ship computer comes online. The doctor opens the hatch, and an alarm goes off, and the bot's face turns into skeletal emojis. The doctor works out that he can blow up the engine, and Bill figures that she can go with the doctor and takes a photo of the map. Then realizes the doctor actually already memorialized it, and he left her there deliberately. So she goes after him. He goes to the engine core, and Bill finds an elderly corpse on the pier, and a Vardy enters the spaceship. There's a book on the pier showing paintings and photographs throughout human history, and Bill asks if people came there because something terrible happened on Earth, and she wonders if they really were that last hope. And the doctor explains that Earth was actually evacuated, and there were a number of colony ships. Remember, this was the future, so really anything's possible. And the engine then starts on its own. He tells Bill that he could use help, and as she leaves, she sees a boy, Praiseworthy, and he asks if they're there. So the doctor shuts down the overloading engine. A Vardy advances on him. His back turned. The doctor assumes that it's Bill until he sees its face reflected in the gauge, and he knocks it off the catwalk, but it grabs its leg and hangs on. The doctor finally knocks it loose, and with a steam pipe jams the wheel, takes Bill to run. He finds her and Praiseworthy asks where everyone is. So, because obviously everyone just disappeared, he has no idea what's happened. And throughout the ship, the hibernation pods activate. A computer tells them to prepare for disembarkation, and the doctor tells Bill that they can't just blow up the city, obviously. I mean, that's not rational at all. So he tells Bill that he actually got it wrong, it turns out. He shuts down the overloading engine, and he explains that the surviving population of Earth is actually in the pods, we find out, which I thought was actually a really good twist, that it was actually the pods that is the rest of Earth. And Praiseworthy then leaves the ship, and then we jump into the real insane climax of this episode. So Bill wonders what happens now. The doctor explains the bots will kill the colonists when they go out. They greet the first colonists steadfast, and the doctor tells him that no one is to leave the ship until he says it's clear. He then leads Bill off, admitting that he really doesn't have a plan, which I thought was interesting. The doctor, always has these great plans, but here he doesn't have one. Like, he doesn't really know what to do here. So, he's never really dealt with something like this before. So Bill shows him the beer. The doctor works out that the best ones were woken to shepherd the Vardy, and the book then shows the dead woman, and the doctor rearranged the photos to reflect the time of death. The woman died of natural causes, and then a few more people died, and then a lot more died just after. So the doctor suggests that the grief spread through the colony, and the Vardys were meant to maintain happiness. That's why the Vardy was there, because they want everyone to be able to, remain happy and not have any sort of tragedy going on in their life. And then he expanded the definition of happiness. They didn't know about grief, so they identify it as an enemy of happiness, not the grief part. They just kind of took the happiness, at face value, and they killed everyone who wasn't happy. Like, if you just showed a frown for like a second, they probably killed you, which is insane to think about. But honestly, again, it makes a lot of sense. Robots aren't really, they get rebellious. They really do. Robots always go rogue, and the doctor gives Bill's good things locket, which shows Praiseworthy and explains that he found it in the greenhouse. And when the awakening colonists find out what happened, there will be a massacre. So Praiseworthy walks through the empty colony as a Vardy watches, and when the other colonists wake up, the doctor tells them that the Vardys are having ideas of their own, and a Vardy confronts Praiseworthy. He offers him a badge, and the colonists grab weapons. The doctor says to the Vardy aren't their enemy. Bill realizes that Praiseworthy is actually gone, and Praiseworthy, we then get this really heartbreaking scene with Praiseworthy where he's asking where his mother is. And now I love this scene with Bill, because like I said, throughout this entire episode, Bill's very confused. She doesn't really know what course of action to take. She's kind of just doing what the doctor tells her to do, and again, it makes sense. Remember, Bill she served chips. That's all she did. She served chips. She wasn't even a student of the doctor's. The doctor recruited her to be one. Now she's really thrown into this entire mission, and now that she realizes finally what she's able to do, she actually does end up helping them out. So because we get the scene where Praiseworthy, he asks where his mother is, and the Vardy looks very unhappy, and the colonists and Bill find the Vardy and Praiseworthy, and as Praiseworthy is trying to wonder what's going on, the Vardy grabs his hands, Bill runs over, and he tries to reassure him, but it doesn't seem to work. She's trying to get him to just wake up and trying to get him to show that smile just so he won't die, because now she's realizing how this whole thing works, and they don't care if it's a child. They'll kill him if they need to. If he shows any sort of shred of unhappiness, they're just gonna kill him. So the colonists kill one Vardy. Bill warns that it's just not one robot. The microbots making up the walls then attack. The doctor realizes the Vardy is actually alive, removes the dead Vardy's head, and sonics the circuitry, and there's a burst of lights. And we get this amazing scene, which I forgot how much I loved Peter Capaldi's monologues, but this scene was so good. The Doctor explains the story of the magic haddock, and it didn't apparently think like humans did, and it didn't really grant the wishes the way its owner wanted it to. There was always some sort of catch that the owner just didn't really see, because again, it had a mind of its own, and the Doctor essentially tells the colonists that he ended up wiping the Vardy's programming, and that was all he was able to do. He had to wipe the programming, and that's basically how they're able to get out of there. So I thought that was a really good way to ending, but this is not the end of the episode. Actually, what I liked is that this episode actually ends on a cliffhanger, which doesn't happen a lot with these singular type episodes, but actually did here. We see the Doctor and Bill, they return back to TARDIS, again reminding us how much this is their story and not just a one-off. There's a lot more to it than that. They go to the TARDIS, Bill now a little bit more confident than she was, which I thought it was in good juxtaposition of the first scene, when Bill had all these questions and she was very wide-eyed, kind of confused as to what was going on. Now she's a little bit more aware of like, all right, I can do this now. Now I know really what I'm supposed to do. They go back to the TARDIS, and the Doctor is about to take Bill back to the college, but when she opens back up the TARDIS, she sees that it's now snowing, so clearly there has been some sort of change that they don't know about. It's perfectly saying of next week's episode, and that is the way this episode ends. Really great stuff overall, but let's just get into this episode and where I think it's going to take us into the rest of the season. So overall, guys, really great episode. I really did enjoy what we got here, but let's talk about what happened now, because obviously we are going to be in, I guess, prehistoric times now, because now we see there's like this elephant, and there's like they're in this frozen type area on the Thames, and we don't exactly know what that's all about. So I guess we'll have to see what ends up happening there. We don't exactly know where we are. Again, I'm assuming it's not the future. I don't think it's in the future, but we'll have to see where next week's episode takes us. I think overall it's very interesting. But what I really loved about this episode, besides the fact that I thought the concept was just really interesting, this whole idea of these robots who, everyone was facing so much tragedy and death, and it was really starting to consume them, that they brought in these robots as a means to try to fix them and get them back on the right track. But because the robots were just kind of playful, and again, they're gonna go rogue because they don't think like humans do, they thought that happiness, had to do with just happiness. It wasn't that they didn't really think about the grief parts, and they took anyone away, and killed anyone who wasn't happy. Again, that's a very interesting concept. There's a lot they could have done with it, but obviously it wasn't enough to fill the entire episode. So I like that they took the episode and instead made it be the Doctor and Bill kind of starting to get to know each other. And I really like the way the Bill is functioning in this story, because she's way different than that of Clara. She's much more resourceful. She's much more independent, and that's something that Clara really wasn't. Clara didn't really become that till I think a little bit later in the show. But Clara always had this sort of like father-daughter dynamic with the Doctor, and Bill just seems like, this is just kind of her weird friend. Like, the Doctor, he's weird, he has all these weird ideas, and that's kind of what he is right now, and I like that. I like that it is very much a mentor or a friend. I like that it's not something, like, family-related. I think it's interesting that they're taking a different approach, but I like that. Again, I think each companion should be different, just like every Doctor should be different, and the show is really, I think, doing a great job of taking that opportunity to really flesh out this Doctor as much as they can, because I'm really liking what we're seeing of this character. I'm really liking Bill as a whole. I think she's very fun, but I also like that she's normal for the most part. Like, as we know, this is the most fun she's ever had. She said that to the Doctor, she enjoys this a lot. She enjoys the adventure, but at the same time, obviously, she is going to be, she's not completely, she's not completely robotic and she's not completely emotionless. There are obviously going to be some missions that really do get to her. And as we saw, she really didn't know what to do in this situation, because what the hell do you do in this kind of situation? I mean, to Bill, she's never faced anything like this before. The Doctor's done this for years and years and years, but the Bill, she's never really done something like this. And I thought that, again, was very well shown. And, if you were to watch the episode back, you can obviously tell this is one of Bill's first encounters, with the Doctor's adventures. You can definitely tell. So I thought that was definitely really great. And the fact that these two are just getting to know each other and Bill was just laughing about it, I just thought was really fun. Again, they did a great job of focusing on the fun. Doctor Who is a very fun show, and the last season things got really heavy, and I was fine with that. A lot of people didn't like it. I thought it worked perfectly for the season, but it did get quite heavy, and I like this season. It seems they're focusing more on the fun and the comedy aspect of it all, and I like that. I like they're concentrating on that stuff. But also Nardole. Where does Nardole fit in all this? Again, I think Nardole, there's something that happened between the Doctor and Nardole that we just don't know about right now. I don't know if the Doctor and Nardole went on some separate mission that we don't know about. I don't know. We know that the Doctor, this is, way like 50 years later from what we saw in the Christmas special. So I think these two have definitely met up before. We obviously know they did because they had that encounter 2 times in the Christmas special, but I think they've been kind of circling the universe together. I just don't really know what exactly is happening here. What is the promise that the Doctor gave Nardole? Why did he give him that promise? What's that really all about? We don't really know at this point, and I do like the way the show is really setting all that up. But the show also, you can tell, it is closing out Peter Capaldi's arc, because she's really starting to question, who are you? Why do you do all this stuff? And I think all that, again, is very interesting. The way the Doctor's trying to kind of steer her away from that. But I think the more he does that, the more interested Bill is going to become, because you can tell, I mean, she has a lot of questions. She's very curious, and that's something I do like about Bill as a character, that she does want to know a lot about this stuff, just like we want to know. She very much is the audience, and I like that. I like that they made her the audience. She's not really a character yet. She is a character, but she also is very much the audience. Like, she's just very wide-eyed, she's confused, and she's getting as much information as we do, and I think it's very smart the way they decided to take that approach. I heard that's normal for companions, but again, remember guys, I've only seen this show since Capaldi was introduced, so I really don't have much knowledge of that stuff. But overall, guys, I really did love this episode overall. This was a really fun venture that, like I said, took a really fun approach. And I'm definitely going to give Doctor Who Series 10, Episode 2, Smile, a 4 out of 5 or a B+. So overall, guys, I really did enjoy this episode. Let me know what you guys saw this episode overall. Loved your thoughts, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for class, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.